Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to talk to you about how you can control the dreaded accordion effect. Now, if you're like, bro, what happened to all the awesome steel content? Please, not another group ride video. I've got you covered on the steel content. I'm actually putting the final touches on a video of whether or not you can actually walk into a local bike shop and walk out with a performance steel frame. That's going to be a really good one. And also, by request, one of the videos that's doing really good on the channel right now is cycling past the age of 50. And somebody asked me if I would do one covering maybe the different issues that women face cycling past the age of 50. So I'm really excited about bringing that content to you as well. But getting back to today's subject matter. Oftentimes in a group ride, there's a pacer and that person is banging out a consistent 21, 22 miles an hour. And you're sitting in the middle of the pack and you're constantly going back and forth between 19 and 23 miles an hour. You're doing this acceleration, deceleration, you're doing intervals. And this effect is much worse towards the middle or back of any group than it is towards the front. And it's one of the reasons why people don't like doing group rides, because they feel like they can't control what's going on around them. Well, today I'm going to identify 4 things that contribute to that effect. And I'm going to talk to you about some practical things that you can do to reduce the effect of that on your rides. Beginning with excessive freewheeling, which shows that a person does not have a very good command on the bike. This is a fast group ride. This is an A group or unlimited. So the speed is going to be really, really high. The rider directly in front of me is Ver, and the gentleman next to Ver is somebody that I do not know. But if you look at Ver and everybody ahead of them, you'll notice that they're very consistent with their cadence, whereas this gentleman is freewheeling from time to time. He's moving around on a bike, and he looks like he's having a little bit of a bike fight because he doesn't have a very good command on a bike. And this manifests itself in creating a yo-yo effect for all the riders that are behind him. Then there's overly enthusiastic closing of gaps, which will clearly have an effect on the cyclists who are riding behind you. Sometimes we can be very measured in our response to closing of gaps by looking ahead, watching what's going on with the speed of the cyclists around us, and slowly working our way back to the wheel in front of us. Then there's inattentivity, somebody just kind of like not paying attention. And then the last one is just natural distractions that'll happen, like reaching for your water bottle or trying to grab something out of your jersey pocket. Okay, so let's talk about how to deal with this properly. Couple things to consider. If we're talking about pelotons, none of what I'm talking about applies. In a peloton, it's a little bit of a free-for-all, not necessarily in a bad way, but you have the freedom to move around without the structure and get in front or get beside or get away from a cyclist who's not doing something that is pleasing to you. This stuff really happens in either a single pace line or a double pace line. Again, the idea is that there's structure. And I'm also assuming that the pace in the front is steady, like in the example that I've described so far. The first thing that we've got to do is we've got to make sure that it's not you. Because frankly, nobody ever thinks that they're creating an issue, because nobody would intentionally create an issue. People just do what they've got to do to make sure that they're surviving on the ride. I've been on rides where a person has jumped past a whole bunch of people because they said it was crappy in the back, and they came to the front or front-ish, and then they started screwing up everything that was going on behind them just because they were not aware of, let's say, what their freewheeling was doing, or their overly enthusiastic closing of gaps and then needing to grab a handful of brakes to slow down. So you've got to make sure that it's not you. Now, if it is you, please be willing to accept counsel. Now, we're adults, nobody likes getting yelled at, but when you're riding in a group, you've got to understand that it's an organism and it's not just about you, it's about a whole bunch of people. So if somebody says, hey, watch the freewheeling or hold your line or something like that, don't take offense to that. You may not like the tone, but try to learn from those things. Next, look ahead. Use your peripheral vision. You can't just be fixated on the person in front of you. Yes, you've got to keep them in your sight line, but you need to also be seeing kind of like what's going on way up the road, because you need to see if there's something going on with the pace. at the minimum, I'll try to look at 2 or 3 cyclists in front of me in a single pace line. If it's a double pace line and I'm having a hard time doing that because of the structure of it, what I'll do is I'll kind of look to see what's going on in the other group, because I have a better line of sight of what's going on in the other line. And usually if there's something that's going to happen in this line, it's going to happen in that line. And I'm talking about stuff that's like change of pace type stuff. Okay, so learn how to look ahead. Next, and this is one that you may not like, but you got to learn how to assess how hard and long it's going to take you to close these gaps by working a couple of them. So let's say you're in this situation with this accordion stuff happening and it's driving you nuts. Well, you got to work a couple of them, meaning you got to go along and play along and, you know, do the up and back kind of thing just to find out, because sometimes it can be an annoyance, but it may not be, you know, this really isn't going to affect my ride, right? So if you have that kind of situation where you're like, I think it's manageable, then the next thing you've got to do is you got to learn how to vary pressure on your pedals. And this is actually a pedaling technique that I really need to demonstrate. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate how you can vary your speed, just making these micro adjustments to your speed by varying the amount of pressure that you're applying on the pedals. It usually happens because there's some sort of change that you observe in front of you, and the initial tendency is to grab your brakes. It's really not what you want to do, and you certainly don't want to swerve, at least not too much. It's okay to drift out a little bit, but what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to control these very small changes in the speed between you and the person in front of you by just reducing the amount of pressure that you're applying on the pedals. A big part of this is obviously anticipating by looking ahead to ensure that these things are happening. And as I mentioned earlier, using your peripheral vision. So here we go. I'm pedaling, I'm looking ahead, and I start noticing some slight changes in the speed ahead of me, and I'll do this. I'll just change the speed or the amount of pressure that I'm applying on the pedals. And usually in a pace line, I'm constantly doing this behavior. Okay, now the speed of the bike changes, but not that much. What it does is it usually changes the rate at which I'm closing in on somebody, because the alternative is what a lot of people do, which is this, which literally throws a bike backwards and robs you of precious momentum. And whenever you do it, you'll find that whenever you get back on the pedal, you're really not applying too much pressure to get back to where you were. Next is managing the gap. Oftentimes in mass start events, you'll get a situation where you'll just happen to be behind a certain cyclist and there's really not a whole lot that you can do about it. So sometimes it's useful to create or allow a little bit of a gap between you and that person so that you're not varying your speed, but you're controlling the way you're riding. This gentleman that you see in front of me in the light blue came in front of me at one of the intersections. I was originally on somebody's wheel, but because of the way how he was riding, I decided best to leave this gap that you see between him and I. Now, if you look over in the right side pace line, you'll notice that that's Zaid from the Cycling Strong After 50 video. And you'll notice that Zaid also has a bike length or 2 gap between him and the cyclist in front of him. Zaid and I did not have a conversation about this. I just noticed this later on as I was watching the video, that we were both managing the accordion effect the same way. Because this guy does a lot of acceleration, deceleration. He's freewheeling a lot. And when you'll notice, for the most part, nobody else around him is really freewheeling. And this is causing an accordion effect. And I decided to leave the gap so that I could control my speed and tempo so that I could have a smooth ride. So that's it. That's some of the things that I find annoying about group rides, namely excessive freewheeling and overly enthusiastic closing of gaps, which is going to create the accordion or that yo-yoing effect. But notwithstanding, none of those things would actually keep me from doing good group rides. There are a lot of reasons why people love doing group rides, namely the safety in numbers and the fellowship. Cycling has become more and more of a team sport, and it's borne out more and more by the variety of people who come out and support these group rides. So that's it. I hope that you've enjoyed that video and the information has been beneficial to you. If you have cycling pet peeves or reasons why you hate group rides and you won't do it, you can let us know in the comment section below. And also, on a positive tip, let us know the reasons why you love group riding. I just mentioned two of them: safety in numbers and the fellowship aspect of it. Again, I just want to express my gratitude to all the support and the love the channel has been getting. We recently went over 8,000 and we're just about to go over 9,000 again. I'm blown away. So thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing, for liking, for commenting, and for sharing. As always, you know, our aim here at the channel is to inform, instruct, inspire. Be blessed.